Have you ever wondered why letting go feels harder than holding on? Why do we cling to things that quietly drain our peace? Maybe it's not love that keeps you there. Maybe it's fear disguised as loyalty. There comes a time in life when you must ask yourself, is this attachment serving me, or am I serving it? Because the truth is, not every emotional connection is meant to last. Some weigh you down, some keep you stuck, and some take more from you than you even realize. Emotional detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or heartless. It means protecting your peace. It's understanding when holding on does more harm than good. It's knowing when your emotions have taken control, keeping you tied to something that no longer supports your growth. Too often, we mistake attachment for love, for commitment, for responsibility. But real love, healthy love, never asks you to lose yourself in the process. How many times have you stayed in a situation simply because you feared that letting go meant failure? We convince ourselves that if we just hold tighter, try harder, things will eventually change. But the more we cling to what's meant to be released, the more it drains us. Emotional attachment becomes a cycle, one where our identity blurs with what we refuse to release. Maybe it's a relationship where you keep giving but feel empty. Maybe it's a friendship that feels like an obligation, not a joy. Or maybe it's a memory from your past that won't let go. And every time you think about walking away, fear whispers, what if you regret it? What if you never find something better? So you stay? You give more time, more energy, more of yourself, only to feel the same exhaustion, the same frustration, the same weight pressing down on your spirit. Your emotions are powerful, but they aren't always right. They can convince you that staying is safer than walking away, that without this attachment you'll be lost. Yet true strength isn't found in clinging. It's in knowing when to release. It's recognizing that your peace, your joy, your well-being matter more than preserving something that's already broken. Detachment isn't about shutting down or turning cold. It's about stepping back just far enough to see things clearly. When you're too close, emotions blur your vision. They make you react instead of respond, trapping you in cycles of frustration and self-doubt. But when you distance yourself, perspective returns, and that's where freedom begins. Think about the times you felt the heaviest, trapped in something that no longer served you. That weight wasn't just from the situation itself. It came from the fear of letting go, from believing that walking away meant losing a part of yourself. But ask yourself this: if holding on only brings misery, what are you really afraid of losing? We've been conditioned to think that letting go means giving up, that it's a sign of weakness. But the truth is, letting go can be the bravest act of all. It means choosing yourself. It means breaking free from the cycles that were never meant to define you. You're choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and freedom over fear. Emotional detachment isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling without being consumed. It's understanding that you can care deeply without losing yourself, that you can stay committed without sacrificing your own well-being. You can love, give, and invest, but never at the cost of your peace. And when you finally reach the point where you can step back and see things clearly, you realize something powerful. Peace was never found in holding on. It's discovered in letting go. There comes a moment when you must ask yourself, am I seeing this for what it really is, or for what I wish it could be? Because how you look at something changes everything. Your perspective doesn't just shape how you see the world, it shapes how you live in it. When you're too emotionally attached, your vision narrows. You stop seeing reality and start seeing through the filter of fear, hope, and longing. But the moment you shift your perspective, you take back your power. We've all been there, holding on to something that no longer serves us, not because it's right, but because it's familiar. We tell ourselves, just a little longer, just a little more effort, and somehow it will return to what it once was. But that's exactly where the struggle begins. When you're emotionally attached, you focus so much on what was or what could be that you lose sight of what is. You see potential instead of reality, and sometimes that vision blinds you. What if, instead of holding on out of fear, you stepped back and asked, what is this teaching me? What is this showing me about myself? Because every attachment has a lesson. It reveals your patterns, your beliefs, and your areas of growth. When you shift your mindset from, why is this happening to me, to what can I learn from this, everything changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start realizing your power to choose how to respond. That's where true freedom begins. Emotional attachment often tricks us into thinking our happiness depends on someone or something outside of us. That if we lose that relationship, that job, or that version of life, we lose ourselves. But that's not true. Happiness never came from the attachment, it came from within you. You just forgot. Maybe you've been holding on to a relationship that drains you because you're afraid of being alone. Or clinging to a version of yourself that no longer fits because the unknown feels too risky. Maybe you keep replaying the past, convinced that one different choice could have changed everything. But the truth is, the past is done. No amount of replaying or regret will ever rewrite it. And the future? It's still unwritten. But what you do have power over is this very moment. Right now, you can choose a new perspective. You can stop seeing your situation as something happening to you and start seeing it as something happening for you. Detachment doesn't have to mean loss. It can be the doorway to growth, a chance to redefine yourself, and a step towards something better. When your perspective shifts, clarity follows. You begin to see that some people were only meant to stay for a season, that some situations were meant to teach you, not trap you. You realize that certain endings aren't punishments at all, they're redirections. And once you accept that, you stop fighting against reality and start moving in harmony with it. That's when peace finds you. There comes a moment when you must ask, where do I end, and where does everything else begin? Because if you don't define that line, life will. People will push, circumstances will pull, and before long, you'll be stretched so thin that you forget who you are. That's why boundaries matter, not just physical ones, but emotional ones too. Without them, you'll keep giving away pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. We've been taught that love means constant sacrifice, that caring means always being available, that being a good person means never saying no. But that's not love, that's self-neglect disguised as virtue. That's self-neglect. And the hard truth is, if you don't set limits, if you don't protect your energy, you'll always end up exhausted, frustrated, and resentful. Not because others took too much, but because you never defined where they needed to stop. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that boundaries push others away. But real boundaries don't build walls, they build healthy space. They say, this is who I am. This is what I'll accept. This is what I won't. Setting them isn't unkind, it's honest. It's saying, I will love you, but I won't lose myself in you. I will help you, but I won't carry what isn't mine. I will show up, but I won't let you drain me. The truth is, those who benefited from your lack of boundaries will be the most uncomfortable when you finally set them, and that's okay. The ones who truly care will respect your limits because they understand that real relationships should never require you to sacrifice your peace, your well-being, or your identity. Maybe you've said yes when you wanted to say no, stayed silent when you needed to speak, gave more than you received just to avoid conflict. But that's not peace, it's avoidance. Every time you betray your own needs or let someone cross a line you knew shouldn't be crossed, you lose a piece of yourself. And eventually, you wonder why you feel so drained, unseen, and disconnected from who you once were. But here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about keeping yourself in. They're about making sure that in every situation, in every relationship, you still belong to yourself. And once you begin enforcing them, something powerful happens. You stop feeling like a victim of other people's expectations. You're no longer driven by guilt or trapped by obligation. You stop resenting the very things you once agreed to. At first, it won't be easy. Saying no when you've always said yes feels uncomfortable. Speaking up after years of silence feels unnatural. Some people may push back, others may not understand. But those who truly matter will adapt, and those who don't, they may have only stayed because you never had boundaries in the first place. So ask yourself, where do I need to draw the line? What am I allowing that's costing me my peace? What am I tolerating that's making me lose myself? Because once you answer those questions, and once you decide your well-being is non-negotiable, everything shifts. You don't just create boundaries. You rise into a new level of freedom, confidence, and self-respect. And that shift is worth it. Most people go through life reacting. Something happens, and before they know it, their emotions take control. Anger flares, disappointment settles, fear creeps in. And in those moments, they're not in charge, their emotions are. They let circumstances dictate their peace, their mood, and their choices. But here's the truth. If you don't learn to separate yourself from what you feel, You'll always be at the mercy of everything that happens around you. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting those feelings take control. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. You take a step back. You observe what's happening inside before deciding how to respond. Most people don't realize how much power they have over their emotions simply because they've never taken the time to notice them. But the moment you do, everything changes. You begin to see the triggers, the patterns, the way certain situations pull specific reactions from you. And once you recognize them, you take back control. Think about the last time something upset you. Maybe someone's words stung, or a situation didn't unfold as planned. That emotion felt real, didn't it? It felt justified. But did it help? Did it change the outcome? Or did it just steal your peace? Because that's what unchecked emotions do. They drain your energy, cloud your judgment, and lead to decisions you later regret. When you practice awareness, you learn to pause before emotions take over. You choose to respond instead of react. And in that pause lies power. You start to realize that you don't have to get upset every time things don't go your way. You don't have to join every argument just because someone invites you in. You don't have to let a fleeting emotion create a lasting problem. Because, in the end, most of what feels heavy today won't even matter a year from now. Mindfulness isn't just about sitting quietly or meditating in stillness. It's about becoming aware of how you move through life. Catching yourself before frustration turns into anger, before sadness becomes self-pity, before fear convinces you not to take the next step. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they crash, and eventually, they pass. If you can let them pass without getting swept away, you'll experience a freedom few people ever find. But this awareness takes practice. At first, it feels uncomfortable, unnatural, even to sit with a feeling without reacting. It's easier to lash out, to blame, to distract yourself. Yet if you want real peace and true emotional strength, you must get comfortable with discomfort. You have to face what you feel without letting it define you. You must learn to observe an emotion instead of becoming it. Maybe you've spent years reacting the same way to the same triggers, telling yourself, "This is just who I am." But that's not true. You can change. You can choose a different response. The more you do, the more you realize your emotions are visitors, not your identity. They come and go, but they don't control you. You are far greater than what you feel in any single moment. And once you understand that, once you live it, you stop moving through life at the mercy of what happens. You begin to move with intention, peace, and power. You move with clarity, with purpose, with strength. And that's what true freedom looks like. There comes a time when you must ask yourself, who am I apart from everything I've attached myself to? Because if you can't answer that, you'll always be searching for something or someone to make you feel whole. You'll chase validation, approval, and purpose in places that were never meant to give it to you. That's why self-care and personal growth aren't luxuries. They're survival. They're what keep you from disappearing in the noise of everything around you. Most people spend their lives pouring into others, relationships, responsibilities, expectations, until, little by little, they forget who they are. They put themselves last, promising to focus on their own needs later. But later never comes. The longer you neglect yourself, the easier it becomes to keep neglecting yourself. You start believing that exhaustion is normal, that emptiness is just part of life, that sacrificing your happiness is noble, but that's a lie. You were never meant to merely survive. You were meant to live. And living begins when you decide that your well-being matters. Self-care isn't just about taking a break or indulging occasionally. It's about creating a life you don't need to escape from. It's about healing, growing, and rediscovering what truly brings you peace and joy. It's about creating space for yourself, not as an occasional break, but as a foundation for your life. Because when you neglect yourself, everything else begins to suffer. Your relationships lose balance, your peace fades, and your sense of direction weakens. Before you realize it, you're left wondering why you feel so lost, so drained, so disconnected. The truth is, the world will always ask for more. There will always be someone who needs something, some demand that feels urgent, some task that pulls at your time and energy. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life reacting to everything around you instead of building something within you. But the moment you start pouring into yourself the way you've poured into others, everything begins to change. You start to see that self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. Prioritizing your growth doesn't mean you care less about others. It means you're making sure you have something meaningful to give. Maybe you've been waiting for the right time to focus on yourself, telling yourself that once things settle down, once people understand, you'll finally do it. But that perfect moment will never come. Life won't pause and hand you the time to care for yourself. You have to make that choice. You have to believe that you're worth the time, the effort, and the investment. Because when you do, when you finally choose yourself first, everything around you begins to align with that same energy. You stop searching for validation in places that could never give it to you. You no longer depend on relationships, achievements, or external success to make you feel whole. You begin to realize that everything you were looking for outside yourself has always been within you. And that's when true peace, strength, and freedom finally take root. Because no one can take away what's built from within. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what am I still holding on to that's holding me back? The truth is, you can't move forward while chained to the past. You can't step into something new while your heart and mind are still living in what used to be. Letting go isn't just an action, it's a decision. It's the decision to stop carrying the weight of what you can't change, to stop replaying the past as if it can be rewritten, to free yourself from what no longer serves your growth. Most people fear letting go because they think it means losing something. But in reality, it's about gaining peace, clarity, and the ability to focus on what's ahead instead of what's behind. You can't heal in a place that keeps reopening your wounds. You can't grow in an environment that keeps you small. And you can't build your future while clinging to a past that no longer exists. Letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's choosing to make space for what's meant for you. People hold on because they're afraid of the unknown, of change, of what life might look like without what's familiar. But the truth is, when you let go, you don't lose, you make space. Space for something better. Space for what aligns with who you are now, not who you once were. Painful experiences may shape you, but they don't have to define you. You don't have to carry every disappointment, betrayal, or heartbreak like a badge of honor. You don't have to let the past dictate how you see yourself, others, or your future. Just because something hurt you once doesn't mean it has to keep hurting you. Just because one thing didn't work out doesn't mean nothing ever will. But the longer you cling to what was, the more you block what could be. Forgiveness is part of letting go, not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. Too many people spend years punishing themselves for mistakes they made, for choices they regret, for not knowing then what they know now. True freedom begins when you release that burden, when you decide that the past no longer owns you, and you choose to walk forward with peace instead of pain. Holding on to regret won't change the past, it only steals the present. You can't build a new life while carrying the weight of shame, nor can you find joy while constantly replaying your failures. At some point, you have to release it. You have to stop reliving the past and start rewriting it. There comes a moment when you must decide that you deserve to move forward. Letting go isn't weakness. It isn't giving up or ignoring reality. It's a conscious choice to put yourself first, to choose peace over pain and growth over guilt. It's looking at your situation and saying, I will no longer let this control me. It's the decision to reclaim your time, your energy, and your emotions. Because your life is too valuable, your future too meaningful, and your purpose too great to stay weighed down by what was never meant to remain. Maybe you've been holding on, believing things will change, that people will change, that life will turn around if you just wait long enough. But what if the change you've been waiting for isn't out there? What if it's within you? The real transformation begins when you finally let go and realize you were always strong enough to move forward, always capable of rebuilding, always meant for more. That's where true freedom begins. Wishing you peace, strength, and happiness. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more inspiring content.